there. I'm making a follow up to a previous video. I had one called Race, Ethnicity, and Hierarchy, something like that. So I'll probably make that a part one. I talked a little bit about treating them as they were the same thing, trying to say that any kind of inequality is bad inequality. I also harped on the idea that our ancestors were dumb. So why I'm making this video is because you've heard before in another one of my videos. I mean, if you're one of my zillion viewers around the world and the galaxy, you heard, you read, you saw that video. The thing that I hate about that, like, is that if I were talking live to some people about what I said, they would say, "Ooh, here's the thing: when you're talking about slavery, you'll hear the Irish were enslaved by the English, or the Irish also tended to be enslaved here, or people were prejudiced against the Irish." I hate it when people say that to explain that we shouldn't help out the African Americans. Because helping out is really a way of apologizing to what we did. And saying that the Irish people were also enslaved based on their race by the English or the way they were treated in the United States is unfortunately a way of saying what I've heard the argument like throughout my life with people that I actually know personally say that what it means is that we don't need to do anything to make up for it because look at us now. Look at us Irish people now. We're doing very well, right? There's a problem with that. First of all, they should still be pissed about slavery that happened to African people that were forced into a diaspora by being removed, forcefully kidnapped from their continent. But the other part about and so basically the Irish should be still pissed about that. They should be wanting reparations for many people. I don't haven't read the demographic like things, but I understand that the Irish occupy a good portion of the proud southern rural areas, and that although some of them are descendants from rich plantation owners and are doing very well, some of them are not. Some of them are doing very poorly. So the concept of reparations doesn't harm anyone. What maybe people should be doing is arguing for reparations and offering for their group to be included. Now, you may have heard in previous videos, or at least gleaned, that I hinted that if people don't like the idea of reparations, then you could think about what I might call universal reparations. Um, Universal could mean two things. All the people who are doing poorly, we lift them up through tax breaks, tax refunds, services provided by taxes for these people, like free food at work, free housing, until they decide they want to move out of the housing into something else better or whatever. Or you could, and other programs like that, like public schools, and also public schools that really have good curricula, and don't defund public schools. So then you can later on say that public schools are crappy because you took all their money, and then say we need to take their money away because they're not doing a good job. That's sabotage, right? So, but what I'm saying is, all those mechanisms can be used to lift up people who need lifting up. That's a universal type of reparation for past oppression. So if you're Irish, I have a lot of Irish in me, but I like to say I'm Puerto Rican because I have a decent amount of Iberian and indigenous native and all these things according to 23andMe, which you got to be careful reading that stuff. 23andMe is based on current populations, and they're trying to talk about your ancestry, so it's kind of weird. So there's one kind is universal, people that were historically oppressed and that we can document and we can quantify, we give them help until they, using their natural abilities and learned abilities, get themselves to an equal place with the help of some funding, because you can't just do it out of your own, people can't just do things out of their own talent. I know that people would laugh hearing me say that, but I'm saying that literally. You can't just do things out of your own knowledge, skills, and ability and succeed. If you do, you're a weird statistical anomaly. Okay, so that's one type. Repair people who've been harmed historically because the harm is still there currently. Or another way of saying universal is everybody, which is what like I think Yang was promoting, I think was his name. Um, Universal basic income. What happens to universal basic income is if you give it to people, some people will spend it poorly and they'll just put it right back into the economy. Some people will use it to buy drugs, and believe me, that goes into the economy. That goes into purchasing other kinds of things, because people who deal drugs buy other things. And then the people who they sell them, the other things like their food, clothing, shelter, and shiny stuff, wind up, making their businesses more lucrative because you have more customers. If you give a UBI, you seed things at the beginning, like I said before, and they grow up into the economy. I think I wanted to make that point differently, and I feel like I made the point well enough, so I shouldn't fish around for the way I originally wanted to make it. Yeah, but the whole idea of the UBI is that people are going to spend it wisely or spend it stupidly, and the people who spend it stupidly will have opportunities, on a regular cyclical basis to rethink their past stupid spending. So that's how people learn. You learn from your mistakes unless you experience a catastrophe that prevents you from having another opportunity to do what you were going to do in a better way. So a UBI makes it so people who are going to make mistake after mistake after mistake will get opportunities to get that bell going off in their mind saying, holy moly, this pattern isn't working for me. Just keep giving them that money, because meanwhile, every mistake they make is feeding the economy and keeping other people off the streets. Um, so this whole thing is not necessarily about the UBI. It's about the idea that people who want to downplay the enslavement of people with dark colored skin in many countries, slavery was in many countries, um, that is misguided. And some people, I think they know that they're being kind of dishonest. Um, there's a comfort that some people have with at least having somebody below them. So there's this thing where you are not rich, you're not doing very well, you're having trouble keep your car running, you're having trouble getting nutritious food for your children, and then you hear people wanting to lift up, say, African Americans, right? And in your little heart and mind, you get a little scared about that because you're thinking, but what about me? And instead of saying, include me on this, because I'm poor also, and I'm suffering, and there are a lot of people who are prejudiced toward me as a rural white Irish descendant or whatever. Say, include me in on this. Say, yeah, reparations. Yeah, include me in on this.